This woman is so creepy. She kept hugging the street lamp and wouldn't let go. The man was curious and went to check, but he found the woman dead. The detective who received the report came quickly to check the situation. He found bruises on the woman's feet and legs. This was clearly the result of prolonged standing, so it occurred to one of the agents. She thought that the woman's death was related to yesterday's lightning. It could be that by chance the woman was walking towards a streetlight. A thunderbolt had struck, and the woman became a statue. But this idea was soon dismissed. There were no marks on the woman's hands. There was no sign of a lightning strike on the top of the lamp either. With questions in their minds, the agents began to examine the woman's belongings. They found nothing in the woman's bag. Even her mobile phone had nothing in it. It looked like the only way they could find out the woman's identity. The only way to find out who she was through fingerprint matching. It didn't take long. The agents found the woman's profile in the database. She was a healthcare worker before she died. The agents were about to investigate when they received a new report. A male victim had been found on a park bench. The victim was in the same position as the woman and was in a strange position. The indentations on his back were the same as the wooden boards on the bench. It appears that he had been dead for a long time too. However, the witness said he had driven by an hour and a half earlier. He hadn't seen the victim. This is puzzling, because it takes 12 to 24 hours for a body to stiffen completely. But the victim's body was completely rigid within an hour and a half. This is not scientific. And what's even more frightening is that this could be a serial killer. The forensics team compared the two bodies. The coroner found that they had two things in common. One was that they had taken sleeping pills before they died. The second was that their livers were slightly reddened. This meant that they had probably died of asphyxiation after passing out. And that's when the agents, who already had nowhere else to go, received another report. This man was in a terrible state. He had been made into a statue and placed on the street. He was already the second male victim of this serial killer. Public opinion exploded. The pressure was on the agents. Back at the police station, the coroner solved the mystery of why he was still standing after his death. It turned out that the killer had put lead plates in his shoes so that he could stand upright like a statue. The coroner also found a powder on the lead plate. They'll need to test it to determine what it is. The forensic scientist took off the man's clothes and found something very strange. The man was dressed scantily, but his feet were covered in calluses. He had dirt under his fingernails. There were even lice on his head, so it's likely that his clothes were changed by his killer. He himself was living in poverty. He, like the other two victims, had died of carbon monoxide asphyxiation. With the only clues they had, the agents began to discuss the case. In the end, they theorized that the killer had done it in the following way. The killer first lured the victims to a place. He gave them sleeping pills. Then he changed their clothes. He fixed them in the position they were in when they died. Then he turns on the carbon monoxide and kills them. Finally, they were moved to the place where the bodies were found. But what was the motive? Agents tried to find a connection between the victims, but as the two male victims were not identified, so they started with the female victims. First they went to the female victim's home. On the walls and on the computer they found a number of drawings of women. One of them was quite bizarre. It showed a woman who looked like she was dead. The agents thought it was a clue, so they immediately found the author of the painting through the signature on it. The author said he liked to paint people dead, but he had no interest in dead people. He admitted that the dead woman had been his model, but he didn't know the other two victims. The clue that was in his hands was broken, but the killer has no intention of stopping. The agents have received another report. The old couple had been on a trip and they had been made into statues by the killer. And like them, they were made into statues. Two other men and a woman. This bizarre and murderous serial killing case quickly went viral. The internet was abuzz with comments and discussions. Under pressure, the agents could find no other clues. They could only hold on to the painter. After investigation, there was something wrong with this painter. When confronted by the detective, the painter admitted that when he was young and ignorant and couldn't afford to eat, he did steal a few dollars, but he had long since given up his profession. He was now a decent and profitable painter. He doesn't need to break the law anymore. The agent took out a few more photos of the victims and questioned the painter. The painter looked at the photos and suddenly something occurred to him. Not long ago, a man had shown him the sketches. The man said he was going to make a statue from the sketches for a competition, but the painter couldn't see it at all. He simply sent the man away. Now that I think about it, the poses of the victims were identical to those on the sketches. With the new clues, The agents immediately investigated. They found the killer's entries online. They found that he had posted a total of 6 entries. The first 5 were identical to the victims. If this is how the crime was committed, then there was most likely a 6th victim. And that's when a woman came to report that her son was missing. So, it seemed that time was running out for the agents. They had to find the killer immediately. But the killer was a man who had no place to stay. To find more clues, a female agent starts gathering information online. She found a comment that was strange. The picture of the dead woman posted there predated the agent's report. It could have been posted by the killer, so the agents touted the killer online. The killer was very impressed. He started chatting with the agents, so the agents quickly found the killer in the library. Based on his IP address, the powder on his computer was identical to the one on the victim's body. He confessed to being the serial killer, but he refused to say where the 6th victim was. He said he would make sure that his work was shown to the world in its entirety. His art would be a hit. The killer was silent. The agents were desperate. And that's when the powder that was found on both the killer and the victim, the test results came back. It was jute fiber. It was likely that the killer had committed the crime in the same place where the powder was found. The detectives quickly used this as a clue to find the crime scene where the jute fibers were stored, and rescued the boy from the basement.